At the beginning of May, I took my very first trip outside of the country and into the United Kingdom. I spent my week down there traveling to various railways throughout England and Wales and essentially living the dream of every railway enthusiast. This video catalogs what I got up to during my trip. I hope you enjoy. I arrived in London the morning of the 7th, and it was a little surreal actually being here. London is such an amazing city with very distinct architecture, nothing like you'd find in the States. However, I wouldn't have time to admire the sights today as my hotel was in York, a good 2 hours away from London, so I got the train out of King's Cross and was on my way. I had planned to visit the National Railway Museum once in York, although I underestimated how long it would take to get from the airport and ended up not having enough time. Fortunately, this wasn't the only activity I had planned for today. An hour west of York was the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway, where they were hosting a very special visitor. That's right, the world-famous Flying Scotsman, the pride of the LNER, the first steam engine to officially be clocked at 100 miles per hour, and one heck of a beautiful engine. I really lucked out. Scotsman's 100th year of service happened to coincide with the year I take my trip, and the Keighley happened to be one of its many touring locations. They weren't running Scotsman the day I was there, but I did get to climb into the cab and take a look around. I even got to blow the whistle. Scotsman wasn't the only engine out that day. Taff Valley number 85 was the first engine I had the pleasure of seeing, and it took me from Keighley to Ingrove West, where Scotsman was on display. And later, number 78022 took me down the rest of the line to Oxenope and then back to Keighley. On Monday, I departed from York and traveled into the mountains of Snowdonia, where I arrived at the Snowdon Mountain Railway. This is a rack railway that uses a special set of tracks that lets the engines climb the highest mountain in Wales. Other than just being a very interesting railway, the main reason I chose to visit this place is because the Snowdon inspired the Mountain Engines book of the Railway series. The railway hadn't started running steam engines up the mountain yet, so I'd be going up in one of the diesels. The steam engines were visible in front of the sheds and were being steamed in preparation for their return to service later that month. I went up in the railway's 12th engine, George, and unlike typical trains, they pushed their coaches up the mountain, so I got a pretty good view of the line ahead. And boy, were there some stunning views going up. We even passed Yeti number 10 and Paris number 11 on their return journeys. Due to high winds that day, we couldn't climb to the top of the mountain and could only go as far as Rocky Valley, a little under 3/4 of the way up. Regardless of that, it was still a fun time. Once back down, I decided to walk over to the neighboring Llanberis Lake Railway to catch a ride on their train. Unfortunately, they were ending services early that day, so I didn't get to explore the full line, but I did get to see Dyfnaint bring in the last train of the day. Right across from the station at Keighley is the National Slate Museum, a workshop that served the old quarry and the railway. The museum is a fascinating place that gives you a glimpse into life working in a quarry. There's tons of old machinery around the place, and they frequently give demonstrations on slate splitting and iron forging. This is also where the railway stores their engines. Here you can see Dyfnaint as well as the works diesel Topsy backing into the shed. The museum also has an engine of their own, Una, who can usually be found chuffing about the place, although currently it is in pieces after a boiler inspection. On day 3, I went down to Porthmadog to visit the Ffestiniog and Welsh Highland Railway, probably the busiest railway I went to. Tons of people were out and about, and lots of trains were running that day. There was Lyd pulling the Woodland Wanderer to Talyllyn. Welsh Pony pulling the quarryman from Ffestiniog. The Snowdonia Star to Carnarvon pulled by the Welsh Highlands Garrett. Even Vale Ffestiniog was out doing odd jobs. Also out that day was Meriden Ymdaith, one of the railway's double Farleys, which is one of my favorite engine designs. They pulled the train I rode to Ffestiniog. It rides for a good 13 miles, so there's plenty of wonderful sights to see along the way. We passed Boston Lodge Works, the amazing Fault Spiral, and lots of sheep. At one point we had to stop the train to shoo one off the line. Quite the interesting trip.
Yeah, he's coming back up again. Oh, no, he's gone up the other side. Anyway, so yes.
On the 4th day, I'd be returning to London, but before that, I made a stop at the Talyllyn Railway, the world's first heritage railway and the inspiration for the Skarloey Railway and Thomas and Friends. Considering how much this show has been a part of my life, I couldn't come to the UK and not visit this railway. I started my visit by having a delicious bacon baguette at the King's Cafe in Wharf. After that, I took a look around the Narrow Gauge Railway Museum, which had lots of interesting narrow gauge artifacts. Most interesting of them all was the study of Thomas's creator, Reverend Audrey. Here you'll find a lot of his writings and personal belongings, including some of his original Thomas models. By this point, it was time for the first train of the day to depart. This train was pulled by the railway's number 7 Tom Roll, all the way to the Streamside station in Grinstead. The journey was really great, and I nearly saw all the railway's engines. There was Sir Hayden Alf and St. Cadfan at Pendray, Tracoon with a works train near Grinstead, and we passed Douglas with their train at Brunaglas. An engine I didn't expect to see was Dol Gach, the railway's second engine. Since 2021, they'd been undergoing an overhaul and have been out of commission, so it was a real treat to see them back on the rails. Once back at Wharf, I had to catch my train back to London, so I couldn't further explore the railway. While this may have been the railway I spent the least time at, it was definitely where I had the most fun. It's such a charming and fascinating line with tons of history. Not to mention, the staff is super kind and friendly. I had a lovely conversation with a conductor who noticed I was from the United States. So if you happen to be in Wales, I would highly recommend visiting this lovely little railway. Thursday would be my last day in the UK before heading back to the States, so I thought I'd finish out my trip with a visit to the Bluebell Railway. Yet another famous heritage railway, and again, one with ties to Thomas and Friends. I arrived at the Bluebell's northern terminus, East Grinstead, where I saw their Black 5 Camelot steam in and run around the train. From there, we went down the line to Sheffield Park, the main hub of the Bluebell. Next to the National Railway Museum, the Bluebell has the largest collection of steam engines in the UK. And while there's plenty to do at the Bluebell, I was just excited to see this collection in person. As we arrived, their 01 class was sat on the adjacent track waiting to leave. Luckily, I was able to snap a couple pictures in front of it before it left. To the right of that was their U-Class sitting in a siding. It was all covered in rust and moss, and it was very clear that it had been touched in a while. You'll find the railway's mascot Stepney in the engine shed. They were the first engine preserved by the Bluebell, and thanks to Thomas and Friends, Stepney's popularity extends worldwide. There's even an exhibit in the museum showing the railway's connection to Thomas and Friends. Behind Stepney, you have the P-Class Bluebell, a radial tank, and Earl of Berkeley. In the next row over, you'll find Captain Baxter, a C-Class, as well as Normandy and Fenchurch. There's also the E4 Birch Grove, Whiterick Hall visiting from the Buckinghamshire Railway Centre, and the Bluebell's 9F, who is currently in the process of being overhauled. Once I had seen all there was at the Bluebell, I headed back to London and finished my last day with some sightseeing. Overall, I'd say I had a pretty good time in the United Kingdom. It's such a lovely country with so much to see and do. This certainly won't be the last time I come to the UK. There's still plenty of places that I want to visit, like the Bowden and Winford Railway, Drayton Manor Theme Park, and I still need to visit the National Railway Museum. So I eagerly await my next trip, whenever that may be. Anyway, this is where I'll end the video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I thank you for watching. Alright guys, bye.